I wanted just to say today about an amazing story that comes out of the book of Acts in chapter 9. The book of Acts is a narrative about all the different events that went on in the early church, and particularly the journeys of people like Paul and the adventures of Peter and others. And it helps us to understand some of the events that happened after the life of Jesus while the church was beginning to form. So I'm going to read a little bit from the book of Acts chapter 9. And it says this from verse 1. Meanwhile, Saul was still breathing murderous threats against the disciples of the Lord. He went to the high priest and applied for letters to the synagogues at Damascus, authorizing him to arrest anyone he found, men or women, who followed the new way, and bring them to Jerusalem. While he was still on the road and nearing Damascus, suddenly a light flashed from the sky all around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice saying, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Tell me, Lord, he said, who are you? The voice answered, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. But get up and go into the city, and you'll be told what you have to do. This was Saul's Damascus Road moment, obviously. And the amazing thing is that someone who seems to be very unlikely to change has a moment with Jesus, and it changes everything. Saul was somebody who was a brilliant lawyer, highly gifted, really a man on a mission in every sense of the word, but in a negative way. And he had obtained letters from synagogues at Damascus with this authority to go and arrest people. So he was very much about pursuing this whole avenue of trying to trial people, of accusing them of saying that they were heretics, of trying to destroy them. He felt very, very passionate about this. And so often we can feel quite passionate, can't we, like Paul? I mean, maybe we're not murderous, maybe we're not that sort of level of passion, but we feel very strongly about something, and we feel that we're very right as well. And that passion about being right is something that we have to really weigh carefully. We can be very right about something, but we could have really missed it. So sometimes we're in this situation where it's a learning curve, isn't it? We can be passionate about doing something that's right, feeling that we're on the right side, and yet actually inside there's all sorts of other motivations going on. And for Paul, that's just an extreme. There's an extreme of zeal, and yet mixed up with that is this hatred and this anger and this destructiveness. And it appears that it's highly religious, but it's inherently evil. It's about destroying people and killing them, getting them into prison, and destroying their livelihoods and ripping apart families. And so something that apparently, he should be doing with great authority and gusto and doing the right thing, and yet it's actually completely against God's plan. And what I think is amazing with this is Jesus comes and encounters Paul. Jesus comes and faces Paul head on. Jesus comes and says, I think you'll find that you really are fighting the wrong person. I think you'll find that you're actually fighting me. You're against God. You feel so passionate and driven by this, but your motivation is all mixed up. There's so much darkness in your heart, even though you feel so strongly about it, even though there's a religious cloak over it, even though you're utterly committed to this cause. The whole thing is founded on something that's completely faulty. And so we have to be perhaps aware in the world in which we live. We can be so focused on something that apparently seems the right thing, and we can be utterly giving ourselves to it, our whole career, our whole life, our whole drive, and yet underneath, maybe Jesus is asking us the question, who are you persecuting? Who are you fighting? Why are you doing this? Can't you see me? Can't you see me? And it takes that moment, and that's the mercy and the kindness of God, that he has this moment with Paul, and he radically changes Paul's life. And we see that, and it takes a little bit longer, and it's a different kind of context, but we see that perhaps with the life of Nebuchadnezzar in the book of Daniel in the Old Testament. Nebuchadnezzar, a man who's so arrogant, and he has the world at his fingertips, and yet Daniel's dream comes true and his whole life crumbles. It takes 7 years for him to come to this place where he recognizes that heaven rules, that God is God. We might never come to that point. We might be so consumed in our passion. We may never meet and encounter Jesus in this way, but it's the mercy of God that Paul did. And what's amazing is, because of this encounter, because of this moment on the Damascus Road, because of this, Paul writes, and his letters are just embodied in the New Testament, one after the other. God's mercy reaches out to people, and I want to pray that God's mercy reaches out to you now. How much we need the mercy of God, how much we need his grace and strength. And I pray that whatever your force of character, whatever the passion that lies beneath you, deep down in the bottom of your being, whatever is not necessarily worked out on the surface, but whatever the deep motivations are, I pray that God will come and bring his spotlight of his searching into your heart, and may you encounter him. May you encounter Jesus. May you find him. That's my prayer. My prayer is that we'll find him again. That the motivations of our heart will be just laid bare in that light, that revelation, the illumination that God brings. As he does that, he can turn our life around. He can turn us in the right direction. He can transform us. He can use us for his purposes. He can do a new thing in our lives. So that's my prayer today for you, for all of us, for that encounter, that Damascus Road experience.